Hello and welcome to another video. Today I have this TREATLIFE 3-way smart dimmer switch. I know this brand TREATLIFE because I have some smart bulbs from them and they're pretty reliable, so I went ahead and ordered these. Inside the package you have two switches here as I ordered the 2-pack. Inside you have wire connectors, you have faceplate covers, as well as two switches. For a 3-way switch, you typically have two switches controlling one light. So the other switch is here. To figure out where the hot wire is coming in, you have to unscrew both of them, unscrew all the wires or take the wires off both the switches, and then use a volt detector to figure out which wire is hot. And that will be your master switch. Once you figure out which one is your master, that's where the smart switch is going to install. If you install the smart switch as the slave switch, it's not going to work, or at least both switches won't work to control the light. So you want to make sure that the smart switch installs as the master. Now, before you do any of the unplugging, you want to make sure that the switch is off or the circuit breaker is off. So as you can see, I'm flicking the switch and the light's not turning on, so the circuit breaker is off. So we can go ahead and unscrew this and then get started. Now you can see in the back that these wires are pressed in, and there are release buttons. So you have to put something in here to release these buttons, and these will come out. The ground has to be unscrewed. You can use a small flathead screwdriver like this to press in there and then tug on the wire, and it should release it. Sometimes it could be harder depending on how old this wiring is. But keep trying and you'll be able to pull it out. I was able to release this one cable, but I'm still struggling to remove the other two. But we're going to keep trying until we get them out. There we go. And the last one. Now onto the other switch. We're going to do the same thing. Take the faceplate off and then proceed to go ahead and take the switch off, take the wires off, and we're going to make sure that the wires are separated from each other. We're going to go down to the circuit breaker, flip it on, and check which wire is hot, and that's how you figure out which one is the master. Out of the two 3-way switches, only one wire will be hot if both the switches are disconnected, because there's no connection running through them. If you leave one of the switches on, there's no way for you to figure out which one's the master. The benefit of these TREATLIFE switches is they've got big enough faceplates so that they'll match up with the older faceplates. Sometimes you have issues with smaller faceplates, and so if you have a lot of exposed drywall, then you gotta patch and repaint, and it makes the job a much more difficult job. All right, and do the same thing where we push in the pins to get the screws off. Here you can tell that they are not pushed in, they're actually looped around over here. So that's actually easier for us to handle. All right, all of our wires are unscrewed from the switch. They are all spread apart. We're gonna turn on the circuit breaker and check which one's the master. Okay, we have our handy dandy voltage tester. As you can see, you can, when it's in the air, it's not beeping or anything. See, red one is not hot. This black one is hot. Okay, so this is our master. You remember that this one was connected with this one because this is probably providing power to another switch. So when we connect it, we want to make sure that this is connected to the same wire twister as this one so that we get power to that next switch. Moving over to the other switch. No volt here. Okay. Now that we've figured out which one is our master, we're ready to install. But before that, make sure you turn off the circuit breaker. Okay, so this is the switch. There is a little plastic covering. We'll leave it on for now so we don't scratch the front of the switch. Take off this warning label. And you do need a neutral wire to be able to use a smart switch. So for the neutral wire, usually in your switch box, you're gonna have it sitting there tucked away like that. So we're gonna pull that out. In your box, you have these wire connectors which you can use to twist the wires together. So the hot wire, the one that was beeping, is gonna connect to the hot right here, right? So let's start with the ground. So we're protected, and then we'll connect the neutral and do the rest. So you wanna straighten out the wires, line them up, and then twist them together. So when you tug on them, they shouldn't come apart. Let's do the same with the white one. The white one already has a cap on. We're gonna just attach it to the bundle that already exists here. As you can see, it's already a quite thick bundle, so sometimes if it's not fitting, you might need a bigger wire connector. For me, it's fitting just fine. In my connection here, we have a hot, and then the other one that was connected to the hot, we're gonna make sure that it remains connected to the hot so that the other switch or light or wherever it's going continues to have power at all times. So the line, which is the black here, we're gonna connect them all together. So I have these 3 cables. You might only have one hot and nothing else connected to it, which is how it typically is done, but somebody's run a cable to this switch into a different switch or outlet or something, so we're gonna just make sure they're all connected together. Okay, they're nice and snug. And then the red travelers will connect to either of these travelers. So these you may switch. So if the other switch is staying on while one is off, things like that. Like if you want to switch the polarity of the other switch, you just switch these cables. So that's trial and error. We're gonna do it this way, and then if I don't like how the other switch sits, I can always switch the polarity. And you can switch the polarity on the other switch too, so that doesn't really matter much. So before we push it in and plug it in, all that, we're gonna actually turn the circuit breaker back on and test the light. I went ahead and exposed some more of this cable so that I can insert it into an easy push connector. There we go. We're gonna go ahead and connect the red and the black ones in the same fashion. And then we're gonna mount the ground back on as well. All right, now it's time to turn on the circuit breaker and test the switches. Switch is on. So as you can see, the circuit breaker is on, and I'm using the dumb switch here. It's working. We're gonna leave this on and see if we can turn it off from there. Here we go. We can turn it off and on from here. And you can go brighter, dimmer, brighter, dimmer. It's very easy to do. But let's go ahead and turn this switch off and see if we can turn it on from here. It still works. So both the switches work just like a normal 3-way should. Now it's time to push this all back in. Switch is blinking red, that means it's ready to connect to Wi-Fi. We're in the TREATLIFE app, and we're just gonna hit the add button, and it's automatically just showing up already, the dimmer switch. We're gonna put in your Wi-Fi password. Hit next. It's connected and Alexa has already figured it out. Let's go ahead and name it dining room. And there we have it. It's all set up and ready to go. You can go ahead and change the brightness and dimness from the switch. You can go ahead and do a dimming range. So if you don't want it to be too dim, you can have different modes of dimming. You can also set a timer for it to turn off automatically if it's staying on for a long time. Okay, now that the switch is set up with Alexa, let's go ahead and test it out. Alexa, turn off dining room. Alexa, turn on dining room. Seems like it's working fine. You do have to give it a few seconds after giving a command to turn it back on from off or the other way around. But let's go ahead and switch the plates back in and show you how it looks at the end. Before you start the process of putting the switch back in, you want to go ahead and turn off the circuit breaker so you're not gonna shock yourself or anything like that. Before you screw it in place, you want to go ahead and push these wires in. You're going to make sure that you are doing it in a neat and tidy fashion so that you're not taking up too much room. Kind of just want to make sure that if the cables are folded up appropriately, then you shouldn't have extra space being used, so that way you can kind of keep track of where everything's going. Make sure that they're not overlapping on each other. Easier said than done. Honestly, for me, consistently, this is the hardest part of the job. You're going to have to use the provided screws to go ahead and screw the switch back in place, and that helps a lot because the screw helps you push it in too. Alright, make sure to not screw in one of the screws all the way in and then work on the second, because that is going to make it much more difficult for you to adjust the light to sit flush with the as you can see, the screwing mechanism is helping me push the light in. This is probably not the best way to do it. You want to make sure you're appropriately pushing the wires in rather than using brute force, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, you know. The faceplate, this part goes to the bottom, so you're gonna put it down here and just snap it in place. As you can see, that's nice and easy. You wanna make sure it's nice and straight. I can see a little bit of a hole right there, very minor. I can go ahead and just paint that over. But this is what the switch looks like. It's pretty nice looking, modern looking. I'm gonna take that plastic peel off and turn the circuit breaker back on and test it out. Both the switches are working still, so I've turned the circuit breaker back off, and now it's time to push this back in and screw it back in place. If your faceplates are dirty, this is a good time to go ahead and wash them. Make sure to dry your switch plates before you install them if you just wash them. Alrighty, so we're done with the project. As you can see, this plate looks really nice, sleek, modern, no screws visible, as opposed to this old switch, which does look better now that I washed it, but still, traditional switch still works. The three-way function, even with a smart switch, works. Is now a smart switch, modern looking, and also a dimmer function. So these are lots of features in just one switch. I actually bought a 2-pack, and as you can see, I've installed the second switch here for my living room, and same thing, you can use the brightness control dimmer switch. It's daytime, so you can't really tell, but these are great looking switches, modern looking switches, just easy to install. They work great, but they have to be installed as the master switch. They can't be the slave switch. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you in the next one.